Hey guys, so I'm back again with another video of the Gogeta vs Broly, but this time more specifically looking at just Gogeta. So I wanted to make a shorter video. It still will be quite lengthy, but a lot shorter than the previous. Just looking specifically at Gogeta. So we have the new Gogeta here on the left, and we'll be comparing it to that on the right, so the old sculpt on the right. So straight away you can probably see that the Gogeta on the left is better sculpted. The dynamic posing is much better. So I'm just going to come here and turn these effects off on the old Gogeta, just so we can see him a little bit better. And I'll probably go ahead and turn these off here. So we're just going to come here and turn off the effects of the new Gogeta. Now if we compare the dynamic posing of the two, we can start off here down at the bottom feet. So if you look at the foot of the new Gogeta, the way it flows into the lower leg and the ankle looks much better, and it's done much better. If we're looking here at the old Gogeta's foot, it is just basically looks like it's cut and paste here, and everything is stuck above. Now looking at the torsos, so the old Gogeta here has vertical movements, so he's leaning to the left, but there's no horizontal rotation. So if you look here at the torso, there's no actual rotation through the torso. And what that does is it leaves the upper chest and shoulders to look static, even though the arms are in a very dynamic position. And what that is also doing now is making this arm, so this right arm, seem a lot shorter, because theoretically this arm should be positioned much more forward based on the pose, but it's not, because there's no horizontal rotation. Now if you compare that to the new Gogeta, we have perfect rotation, so we have vertical movement, so that's him leaning backwards, and horizontal rotation, so up through the waist here, so you can see that up through the waist, into the chest, the upper portions of the chest and the shoulders. And what's that doing is that's allowing the arm of Gogeta to be in the proper position, which gives it a much better flow and looks much better here. So you can see here when we rotate around on this angle, this Gogeta here on the right, the old Gogeta, looks weird. Whereas if we look closely here at the new Gogeta, the way that the body flows up through the lat, under the arm, just looks better. And you can see that here too, the anatomy is just spot on. Now if we look at the back end of these sculpts, so if we're comparing the shirts, for example, and what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to rotate this old Gogeta, so bear with me. So if we're comparing the two shirts, you can see here on the right, the new Gogeta, the way the shirt flows, it's showing movement and dynamic movement that works with the rest of the posture. So you can see it flowing upwards into the arm, as obviously his arm is up higher. Whereas if you're comparing it to that of the old Gogeta, there's no movement at all. So it's basically, again, like the shirt here was sculpted separately and just pasted in place. So there's no movement to show that this part of the shirt is higher than the lower part, and it gives it that real boxy effect. So it basically looks like just a square that's cut and paste there. So you can see that here, it's just basically a square, whereas this one here is a lot more dynamic flowing. Now if we're looking at the texture work, so the texture work already, you can probably see there on screen that the texture work of the old compared to the texture work, and just ignore this arm here, there's no texture currently applied. The texture work of the new, there's basically no comparison between the two. It's much cleaner. Now you probably think that this sculpt here still has too much texture, however, on the digital sculpt, we bake it in a lot heavier, so it needs to pass through different stages. So that's the stage of 3D printing, the stage of casting, molding, polishing, and painting. So it needs to survive each of these stages. So each stage it moves through, the texture becomes less and less prominent, and we want it to be visible on the physical product in the end. So we do need to bake it in a lot heavier here on the digital sculpt. You can see all the details here, so the anatomy, the muscle bellies, striations, all the little intricate details here that make this sculpt far superior to that of the old. So we'll just move it around just to give you different looks at this sculpt. Material here of the waistband, I guess you would call it. You can see here that the 3D mapping, the UV mapping, is done correctly. So you can see, even though there's a lot of dynamic movement, there's no real stretching and no distortion of the texture. So the way it's been applied is quite professional. So if you look at a lot of other studios, which a lot of collectors don't know much about this at all, but us in this professional world, we look at this. So there's a lot of stretching and distortion of the textures because the UV mapping has not been done or done correctly. Now, if we look over here at the old model, and I want to showcase what I mean by this is, and I'm just going to turn just this sub tool on to concentrate on it. You can see here the way the texture kind of stretches. So you see here the portion of the texture where it is small texture and it starts to stretch here. And that's because the 3D mapping hasn't been done properly. And that makes the difference between a KD very high quality sculpt and one here, which is still of a high quality, but not to the same standard as that of the new sculpt of Macon. So if you're looking at the hair as well, so the way the hair flows on that of the new sculpt, again, everything is sculpted dynamically and all seamlessly flows. So the way the hair is flowing in the position of the head and the way the arms and the torso is posed is flowing quite nicely. But if we compare that to that of the old sculpt, there's no flow whatsoever in the hair and it's actually in the wrong orientation as opposed to where the face is pointing. So again, you can see here on this angle too, to move it around. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just move this Gogeta into a different position because I want to compare the faces now and the character likeliness of the two sculpts. So if we're comparing the two faces of Gogeta, for me personally, I much prefer that of the left. And the reason being is when we start to rotate on different angles, I still see Gogeta sculpted the same way and it still looks like Gogeta to me. It doesn't matter what angle it's on. Whereas the sculpt at the right, so the old sculpt to me looks strange. So once we move from, this main viewing angle and we start to move to the front here, or we're looking from the bottom, or even this side, it starts to look very weird to me. Now again, we're trying to show this to you, and it will always be just a 2D viewport. Anything that comes through your screen on your computer or your phone will be a 2D viewport. But what we're trying to do here in the digital world is, with our experience, is trying to sculpt the product that once we create it into a physical product, we know that it's going to look good on all angles. It's just the way the face is, the symmetry of the face, the different planes as we move through. And that's ultimately why we've redone this entire sculpt, because we wanted our main sculptor Macon to do this because we have much more confidence in his ability to create the faces for us, because he's been doing this for us now for the last 6 going on 7 years. And you can see that here in the work. The way the hair flows, the face on different angles, on the different planes that we move around. If we turn on the body of the old Gogeta, which I'll probably do just now. So if we turn these on. Might as well go ahead and turn on all this stuff. And you can see straight away just on the body the difference between the two sculpts. It's non-comparable. So that's the last video I'm going to do on this Gogeta vs Broly. I just want to quickly point out this hair here, because I'm just noticing it now for the first time. But here there's some strange stuff going on. I know on the physical that this would look very weird. So if we just go ahead and we turn on some different lighting here. Just try light up on a different angle. It's this portion of the hair, the way it comes out. I've just drawn lines all over it, so you can definitely see it now, but it's very weird. It doesn't flow. You see that? What I'm talking about here? So I already know that on the physical product of this head, it will look a little bit strange. It doesn't flow like if you look here, the way it flows. It's just nicer, a lot nicer and cleaner. But look on these angles too. Like these are some really strange angles here, which obviously completely destroy the faces. So don't look at this and be like, oh, that's not Gogeta. I mean, look at the angle we're looking on. I'm just looking at the way that the hair kind of flows around. So that brings us to the end of today's video. It was just to showcase the two Gogeta, that of the old and new. So there is a very, very small portion of people who pre-ordered the old Gogeta who still seem to believe that the old Gogeta is better sculpted. Hopefully this video today can show you the differences between the two, and you will come to the realization that the new one is far superior. It would be an unjust act for us to discard the new and produce the old sculpt. The old sculpt is far inferior in terms of design, sculpt quality, dynamics, posing. And you will be able to see this today in this video. So thanks again for watching, guys. If you do like these videos, please let us know, and we'll continue to do these moving forward on our future sculpts.